And then they're trying to just disrupt it and, you know, say, we're going to make this other form of meat and try to convince people that meat is bad for you, bad for the planet, it's unethical. And the reality is they just want to make money. This is like, you know, they're going to try to do this. And it's really none of those things. And those plant-based meats, those lab-grown meats are arguably worse for the environment.
Okay, guys, Dr. Shawn Baker out here in Las Vegas. Got him before he's going to speak at Bitcoin conference. That's a different conference from what you normally speak at.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I've been advocating for this crazy nutritional approach for many years. And for the longest time, I only spoke kind of to like-minded people at low-carb conferences. But now it's grown to such an extent that I get asked to speak at political events, you know, strength training events, Bitcoin conferences.
Yeah.
The cattle industry likes me to talk to them, believe it or not.
It feels like being healthy is like the new wealth, though.
Yeah, it's becoming the countercultural revolution is to ditch all the, you know, the fake stuff and kind of get back to our roots, I suppose.
Yeah, like when I come across healthy people, it's like a turn on for me, right? It shows that they actually take care of themselves.
Yeah, I think that is something, you know, you can't buy that. You gotta do it, and I think it's you know, it's emblematic of a lot of things about a person, I think.
Yeah, and you were really early to this carnivore space. I mean, you created it, right?
Well, I wrote the book. Yeah, I was the first one to publicly, sort of in a big way, call it a carnivore diet. I mean, there have been people that have been doing carnivore diets, even physicians going back hundreds of years. I mean, it's got James Rollo, Scottish surgeon, 1790s, wrote about treating diabetes with all meat diets. So this is not new. It's just that we live in a, you know, as you know, a social media time where, you know, an idea can be spread like wildfire in a period of time. Now, again, I've been talking about this nearly 10 years now, and it's finally reached a point where a large number of people have heard of it. Now, when I first started, probably 99.9999999% of the people thought I was absolutely nuts. Now it's only about 99%. So we're making progress with that.
Yeah, Rogan will help you do that, right?
Yeah. Joe, yeah, you know, the first time I went on Rogan, I remember I was talking to him, and you can just tell he thought I was nuts. Yeah, you just tell it. You know, the second time I went on, he was like, "Dude, you got to keep talking about this stuff. All my friends are doing better." So it clearly works for people. You know.
So you got him on it, right? Is he still on that diet?
He does it from time to time. He mostly does it. And the honest truth is, most people that do a carnivore diet, you know, and again, as a physician, I promote it as a therapeutic tool that you'll do for a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, perhaps. And then you go, you know, and then if you want to tattoo yourself and call yourself Carnivore Carl, you know, that's up to you at that point. But I mean, what happens to most people is they'll do it for a period of time very strictly. They'll cure a disease, maybe an autoimmune disease or diabetes or something like that. And then they will sort of find where they can sort of have a little bit more relaxation in that. And I think that's totally fine. I'm not dogmatic about this. I'm one of the least dogmatic guys. I'm dogmatic about we should have a strict definition. So when somebody says I'm on a carnivore diet, you know what we're talking about. It's not like I'm eating, you know, 3 times a week, you know, a salad and you know, honey and all this stuff. Because obviously there's these animal-based diets, which are, you know, they share some similarities. But from the unique aspect that I see, a very strict carnivore diet is uniquely beneficial in certain situations. So we need to have that clearly defined. And after that, like I said, you know, I have a digital health company, and we treat some people with carnivore diets, some people we treat with a ketogenic diet, some people we treat with more of a just paleo style diet, depending on what disease they have.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see the reversals of disease that you see. It's I mean, I'm still amazed almost 10 years into this, the stuff I heard about. I mean, I was at the Bitcoin conference, and I probably had 200 or 300 people come up to me and say, "Hey, look, you've changed my life.
Wow.
I've lost 100 pounds. I no longer take medications." And so this is, I mean, it's fun for me as a physician. You know, I spent, you know, 20 years practicing as an orthopedic surgeon. And, you know, I mean, you help people. I mean, that's not to say that you can't help people to some degree, but it is an order of magnitude more impactful what I'm doing these days. And it's much more, you know, fulfilling.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, because now you could just make a video impact hundreds of thousands of people with one video.
Yeah, depending on how the algorithm picks it up. But I mean, the one thing that's interesting, because we have a whole bunch of physicians that work for our company, Rivero, and the one thing they always tell me is, I'm so much happier doing this than I was the sort of standard kind of allopathic medicine, which is, it's sick care. It's not health care.
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably been around long enough to realize that all we're doing is sort of medicating symptoms. We're doing disease management. We're not healing people.
Yeah.
And that's a real shame.
It's so crazy that all this healing's happening just from a diet change. I feel like most people can't even fathom that.
Yeah, it shocked me. And the only reason I'm such an advocate for this is that I see it every day, and it's undeniable for me. And, good thing is we're getting studies out there now, because a lot of people are skeptical because there's no studies. The studies are coming out little by little. I mean, they're expensive. I mean, it's not easy to do a big randomized control trial, costs millions and millions of dollars. And, there's not a lot of people that are lining up to pay for these things, but we're getting those things done. It's not, and I should be clear. I mean, I don't think it's just diet. I think it's it's a comprehensive lifestyle intervention. And, as you probably had some of your other guests talking about, the importance of sleep, the importance of not being sedentary, the importance of managing stress, the importance of our light environments. And then of course, nutrition is a huge one. And then I'm a guy that really likes, exercise. And I think it has a unique benefit as well.
Yeah. And we were talking out there, you really know the history of this stuff, which is impressive to me. Like you were talking about how we used to eat all the big animals, those went extinct. Now we eat the lean cuts.
Yeah. I mean, there's a really good paper. I'm paraphrasing the title. It's something like the Trophic Level of Man, or Prehistoric Man. It was written by a guy named Mickey Bendor, Rafi Sortola, and another guy, Reina Barca. They're both out at Tel Aviv, and Rafi, I think he's in Paris, or he might have been in Lisbon. And they go through like 25 converging lines of scientific evidence, everything from fossil records to radioisotopic data, genetic analysis to bioenergetics. And they came to
The Tri-Light from Therasage is no joke. Medical grade red and near infrared light with 3 frequencies per light, deep healing, real results, and totally portable. It's legit. Photo biomodulation tech in a flexible on-body panel. This is the Tri-Light from Therasage, and it's next level red light therapy. It's got 118 high-powered polychromatic lights, each delivering 3 healing frequencies, red and near infrared, from 580 to 980 nanometers. It's sleek, portable, and honestly, I don't go anywhere without it.
Conclusion that all this data pointed to a highly carnivorous past for Homo sapien species, and the hominids or humans that predated those. That would be Homo habilis, Homo erectus, the Neanderthals, all of those which, kind of intermixed, and we had this sort of interesting melange of species to finally develop Homo sapiens. And up until about 80,000 years ago, our primary food would have been these large animals, just because, you think about where you're going to get energy from. And there's a lot of talk about optimal foraging strategies or hunting strategies. If you can take down a large animal, say an elephant, you've got food for maybe a couple months, literally, depending on how many people you have in your group. Whereas if you have to hunt smaller animals, fish or birds, and all you have is a spear, it's going to take you a long time to get enough food. And if you're gathering plants, also tremendous energy output for a relatively small return. Now, today, modern food, we've solved a lot of those problems, because now I can turn, all this plant material into powder, sugar flours, tremendously increase the energy value of that sort of stuff. I can now obtain adequate energy so that I can eat a more omnivorous balance, or even a plant, completely plant-based diet. But prior to that, this would not have been possible.
Yeah, plant-based protein powder, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I should, be transparent here. I mean, I'm very much a proponent of a carnivorous diet for certain individuals, depending on their health issues. But, there are some plant-based protein powders where they've been able to engineer them to where they have enough leucine. This is one of these critical amino acids, and some of these other things where they can get, approaching what animal products do. Again, some people would argue, hey, it's not really food. We're eating these, synthesized, lab-made products. Is that good for the species? I mean, there's a debate that, the industrialization of our food has directly led to a dramatic decrease in our overall, population health, decreases in life expectancy, which are happening now. I mean, your generation is probably the first generation to live shorter than your parents.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Average male now is 71 in the US, right?
I think something like 71, 72. Yeah, I think it's down a couple of years. I mean, I think the overall number is 77, 76. It was, I think, as high as 78, 79. And so we're seeing a downward trend for the first time.
That's a pretty big jump within one lifetime.
It's significant. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we turn it around.
That's nuts. Now you're pushing 60 when you get blood work done. Cause I know you said earlier, you're on no supplements, right?
Right.
Any deficiencies, anything red
no,
flags?
I mean, this, and I I tend to look at health in a very sort of basic way. I know there's thousands of tests you can get. You can study your telomere length. You can look at your DNA methylation. You can look at your mitochondria. And there's all this thought on this is what's leading to aging. But I mean, the reality is those things, I mean, I've never seen one of my own mitochondria. I know they're there. I've never seen one. And it's unlikely that I ever will, unless I have some scanning electron microscope or something like that, or access to powerful stuff. So I can't really impact that and know what's going on day to day. But I can look at things like how fast can I run? How far can I jump? How high can I jump? How well do I sleep? How do I feel? How do I function? Those things to me are reflective of what I think are meaningful health metrics. And so I tend to emphasize those things. So like, as you mentioned, I'm going to be turning 60 soon. And I'm like, dunk a basketball. That's not something many 60-year-olds have ever done. There's only a handful that have ever done it. And most of those guys are ex-NBA guys. Yeah. Jordan did it. Dr. J did it. I think Dominique Wilkins did it. But these guys are like 6'8", and we're phenomenal guys that can jump. And so that's just one thing. It's not the only thing that's important. But I mean, it really, I think we sort of have gotten to where, with all the sort of the biohacking stuff and all the data we're getting, we're sort of losing the forest for the trees a little bit, because we're like, oh, I got to worry about what my mitochondria are doing. And it's like, well, what about the big picture? Yeah. And that's where my emphasis tends to be.
Yeah. I think it's getting extreme. I see guys giving 20 vials of blood and it's like, holy crap. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, I will say that, and I know there's a lot of people that are longevity gurus and whatnot. I have no idea. I will tell you, I don't know if my diet's going to make me live longer, shorter. I don't think it's possible to know that realistically. I just think it's not possible to do those studies. So I really look at quality of life. What is the quality of your life at 50, 60, 70, 30, 40 in some cases. And that's to me what I think I know I can impact positively. And that's pretty easy to measure. Like if I were like saying, like you had a guest on here, Brian Johnson, saying he's going to live forever. He's not going to die. And, people will buy into that, and maybe they'll, spend money on this, and they're like, is there a money back guarantee if I die? That's not going to happen. And so I'm very reluctant to sort of make any of those claims. I just said, look, I think I can take a sick person and make them healthier. I see it all the time. And I think that's quite a bit. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah. Brian Johnson's a very interesting person. I mean, he has all the studies, but he just, appearance wise, it just doesn't look. I don't know. I've never made,
I mean, a lot of people say he looks maybe not as he should. For somebody who's going to live forever, but I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Do you eat the organs too, or just the meat?
I generally don't eat the organs. I just don't like them, and I've had them from time to time. I mean, this is another thing. When Harvard University did their study on the carnivore diet in 2021, I specifically spoke to the primary researcher because I helped kind of get off the ground. And I said, hey, make sure you ask about organ meats, because this is something that a lot of people are claiming is necessary. And my observation, and from people that were doing it long before me, there's groups of people who have been doing this for decades before I ever even started this. And they were all saying, hey, look, they're not really necessary. You can eat them if you want. That's what the Harvard study found. When I did my data collection on 12,000 people, I found the same thing. It was like, if you like them, it's good. Now, again, some people will say, I feel better when I eat these things. And I don't discount that. I said, sure, if it helps you, fine. But to say that, everybody needs to do this doesn't sort of lend itself to what the reality is. Same thing with whether you eat grass-finished beef or grain-finished beef. It doesn't seem to matter that much. I know that upsets a lot of people, but I'm not going to sit there and lie to people. I'm going to say, look, if you can only afford to go to Walmart and get the cheapest ground beef there is, it's likely going to still be very beneficial to you. And I just see people like that all the time.
So you haven't noticed a major difference with, let's say, Walmart meat versus the highest quality meats
No, I mean, other than what it costs and how it tastes. I mean, I had some really high end. God, it was ridiculous. It was a $250 fillet. A5 Wagyu from Japan. It comes with a certificate. Out of the.
I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the show a lot with the algorithm. Thank you. A5, right? Yeah.
And it was like eating like meat butter almost. I mean, it was so rich I could barely finish the thing. But I don't think it makes any more health difference than going to the grocery store and getting a $10 steak or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, a lot of marketing when you go to the grocery store. It's all these labels, and especially with the eggs. You never know which type of eggs to buy. You're going to spend 20 on eggs or 5.
And it's, the problem with this is another thing. I think we talked about this outside. The labeling is so deceptive. You get it natural, organic, fresh, wholesome. All these little ingredients. They put little cute little natural things on there, like plants on there. And it's just very, very deceptive. I mean, it's like, like I said, grass finish label in a grocery store means the cow, if he chose to go outside and nibble on some grass, he could have some grass, but he might spend his whole life, indoor eating, TMR, total mixed ration, and they can still call it grass finished. So it's kind of like, I don't really get too worried about that.
I'm losing faith in the organic label the more I look into that one.
Yeah, there's been a lot of evidence that shows it doesn't really make much of a difference,
which is crazy because people spend double, triple the price for that.
Yeah. I can remember buying, years ago, buying all these organic fruits and vegetables, and it seems like they always went bad a lot quicker. So not only would you pay more, you'd end up throwing half the stuff out.
Yeah.
And it's just not very efficient. So
strawberries go bad quick these days.
Yeah, I think there's some tricks. I don't, like I said, I don't do the plant-based stuff much anymore at all. But I mean, I think there's some tricks. You can like spray them in like a vinegar water or lemon water or something. You can make them live longer. But
you don't ever crave something sweet like a dessert or fruit?
Like I said, I'm not dogmatic about this. Every once in a while, and like I said, like I've got 4 kids. They'll have a birthday party. I might have a piece of cake or something like that. But I don't really like crave it, particularly if I make sure I just consume enough food. And this is one of the problems. A lot of people will come to this diet and they're like, oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds right away. So they'll restrict themselves unnecessarily. They're like, oh, I better not eat. And then what happens is they develop these pretty significant cravings. And no diet will be successful if you're hungry all the time or you don't like the food. I mean, if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. So I mean, fortunately, I personally like eating steak. I like red meat. I eat eggs. I eat fish from time to time, and I enjoy that. And so as long as I eat enough of that, I don't really get too bothered about the other stuff. Now, occasionally, like if I'm unable to eat normally and, like there's no other food available, I might get hungry and, may go off the diet occasionally, but I'd say 98% of the time I'm pretty tight with things.
How do you get your meat cooked? Because there's some conflicting info on that, right? The more you cook it, the more nutrients are cooked out of it.
Yeah, I think to a point. I mean, I like my meat medium rare. I mean, I think that's a nice, the French, they call it à point, al punto in Spanish. I mean, it means that's where it tastes the best. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And again, it depends on the cut. If you're talking about a steak, medium rare, because what it does is it sears the surface so you would kill any bacteria that might be there. And then the inside is still, fairly rawish, fairly rare. I wouldn't say raw, but rare to where you're going to get most of the nutrients. I think overdone, well-cooked meat, this doesn't taste good. And I think you're losing some. You're not losing it. You're not losing like all of it, but you're seeing a somewhat of a decrease.
I can see that. Do you ever eat fully raw?
I've tried that. And I'll have like at a restaurant, I'll have like carpaccio, obviously sushi or sashimi rather. I try to do a raw version of carnivore diet because people were talking about this maybe 5-6 years ago. I just didn't enjoy it. I just, sitting down to a cold bowl of ground beef or a cold steak was just, I think I could lose more weight doing that because I just didn't like the food. I was like, so I generally like it. I don't know.
Liver King, man. He really made that one popular.
I don't know what he was really doing. There's obviously a lot of deception with that guy. Yeah.
Do you eat any pork?
From time to time. Yeah, from time. Mostly it's in the form of bacon occasionally. But, it's kind of funny. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, bacon's so good, but I rarely ever eat it. I really don't want it that much. But once in a while, pork belly once in a while. But it's probably on the order of a couple times a year.
Yeah. I think people are surprised that the diet's kind of affordable. I was talking to Steak and Butter Girl about this, and she said when she was a vegan, she was spending way more.
Yeah. I mean, because, I'm on Instagram and I'm eating ribeye steaks all the time. And if you do that all the time, it's going to be more expensive for the average person. But most people, you can do ground beef. And I eat a lot of ground beef. It's just not as exciting to put a picture up there. Although every time I show a picture of me with a little hamburger patty with an egg and a little bacon and a piece of cheese on there, people go nuts because it tastes good. But yeah, you can do this diet, even today, $5-6 a day.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. I did a little YouTube video. We haven't released it yet. It's like $1 all the way up to $250 meals, carnivore meals that you can do. And so eggs will get you there. You go to Costco, go to the business center and buy in bulk. I think you can get like 5 dozen eggs for $12 still. So that's pretty economical. Yeah.
You ever struggle with constipation, not getting fiber?
Yeah, so it's an interesting point. I don't consume really any fiber at all, significantly. And no, I really don't. I guess the only exception to that, if I eat a lot of like dairy products, particularly cheese, then you'll see that. And a lot of people will see that. And I think it's probably the calcium content, and 2, it's probably the kind of the opioid type effects. There's the casomorphones that are found in cheese, and narcotics, typically anybody that's been on like opioids will know they get constipated pretty easily. So I think there's some of that effect going on. But if I don't eat a lot of cheese, no, I don't have any problem.
Do you pay much attention to the raw dairy versus dairy stuff?
I know it's there. Not really. I understand that there's people that believe that raw dairy is superior. Again, when I look at people that consume it versus don't consume it and consume standard pasteurized dairy, I don't see any major, huge health outcome differences, from my observation. Again, you have the individuals that'll say, "Hey, I feel better with raw dairy. It helped fix my gut." I don't discount that. I'll have raw dairy from time to time. It depends what state you live in, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know what Nevada's rules are.
It's banned here.
Is it banned? Yeah. Washington State, I can get it. So there's a little co-op in my little town that I live in that has raw dairy, and I've got it from time to time. So I think it's fine. The reality is, there are people that get sick more often on raw dairy than pasteurized dairy when we're talking about bacterial infections. But those numbers annually are like lightning strike rare. It's like, 10 people a year, which is, in the U.S. it's minuscule.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to probably millions of people taking it, right?
Yeah, right.
Where do you buy all your meat? Is it local butchers or online from Amish people?
I get a bunch of different stuff. Because I become this meat influencer, I get a lot of ranchers to send me their stuff. So I get a lot of free meat, man. So I'm sure as hell going to eat it.
What a life.
So, that's good. That's not bad. I had a side of beef from a local rancher guy. Sometimes I'll just go to the store, depending, like if I don't have something and I feel like something, I'll do that. But I get a lot from, and I really like supporting ranchers. I think they are critical. They're really, this is a national security issue. I don't know if you know this, but back in the 1970s, we had 1.3 million independent ranchers in the United States. Right now, that number is down around 600,000. So we've lost getting close to 1 million ranchers over the last 50 years. And every year, something like 10 to 20,000 of them just go out.
Holy crap.
Yeah. The average age of a rancher is like 62 years of age. And so this is very disturbing to me, because this is something that I see as a very critical tool for healing people. And then all of a sudden you got no one producing it anymore. Then you're like, well, what are you going to do that? I guess everybody goes on the drugs and stays medicated for the rest of their life. So no, it's a real call to action to support your local ranchers, or at least buy direct from a rancher. And there's a lot of guys that are now getting into the direct to consumer deal, because about 85% of our beef in this country is falling under 4 companies that are kind of centralized. And there's some concern about those guys centralizing the food even farther, because, as the food becomes more and more centralized, we have less control and less option over it. And so if they decide, hey, look, we make all the food and we're going to do what's best for our bottom line, profit wise, then, it may cut a lot of people out of some.
Yeah. Why do you think we're losing so many ranchers?
Well, the government has made it increasingly difficult for them to ranch. It's more expensive for them to do so. Some of the prices are going up. The shift from profit, it used to be, 50 years ago, a rancher might get 3 times as much for every dollar they put in as they do now. So most of that has been shifted to the retail side and the packing side. So these 4 companies, JBS and National Beef, which are Brazilian companies, and then Tyson and Cargill, control about 85% of the U.S. beef supply right now.
Holy crap.
And so it's really concentrated. back in the 1920s, there was legislation passed called the Stockyard and Packers Act, and it was supposed to break up the monopoly. And they put it in the legislation. And back then, it was like they controlled 75% of the beef supply.
Yeah.
That law was passed, and now they control 85%. So it didn't.
How did that happen?
They don't enforce it. They don't enforce the law.
Damn, that's scary. And it's only going higher, so it could be 90, 95 in our lifetime.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Jeez.
They want to, and you see the alternative, you see all this stuff about all the plant-based meats and now the lab-grown meats. And so that is, I think a lot of that's losing a little bit of wind out of its sails because there's a lot of venture capital money. Like Silicon Valley invested, billions of dollars into these startups for, alternative meats because they see it as, the meat industry worldwide is a $1.5 trillion market. And so they're like, well, let's do Meatless Monday. So what's 20% of 1.5 trillion? So that's, a couple $100 billion.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge market. So there's all this advertising that goes into that. And then they're trying to just disrupt it and, say, we're going to make this other form of meat and try to convince people that meat is bad for you, bad for the planet. It's unethical. And the reality is they just want to make money. They're just, this is like, they're going to try to do this. And it's really none of those things. And those plant-based meats, those lab-grown meats are arguably worse for the environment, worse for the health of the planet, and probably worse for our health.
Jeez. Did you see they brought the mammoth back and they're trying to make mammoth jerky and stuff?
I don't know if are they, I know I don't know, have they got it successfully all the way
I don't know
back?
if it's successful, but they're trying to clone the baby mammoth.
Into an elephant, I think. Yeah.
Oh, an elephant?
I think they're going to do that. Yeah, they're doing a similar, do you know what an auroch is?
No.
So an auroch was the predecessor to the modern cow. So these were huge animals. They stood like 6-7 foot tall at the shoulder. They were like 3,000-4,000 pounds. And they were mean. They're mean and they're hard to domesticate. So we domesticated cows. So we kind of bred them kind of like wolves to dogs. We kind of turned those things into these smaller versions, which are now the domestic cow. But they're back breeding those things. So they're going back and they're finding, two animals have a little bit of DNA and then they back breed and they keep making these ones. And so I think, if not now, within the next year or two, they should have some of those fully bred. And I think in Europe they're doing it. So it might be, I think, Romania, Poland, something like that.
Interesting. Would you ever try some auroch meat?
If it's available, it'd be interesting to try. Yeah.
What's the most exotic meat you've tried? I've had kangaroo in Australia. I
went to Iceland a few years back, and I had some whale. I had some fermented shark.
Whoa.
Which smells awful and tastes slightly less awful. I had ram testicles. God, what is that? I remember this guy, Ivor, he took me around. He wanted to show me all this stuff. And it was like all these sort of interesting, like sheep's face. You got the whole face and eyeball looking at you. I've had pig brain. Honestly, but none of them were really that good in my view. I was like, just give me a steak. It tastes better.
It's hard to beat steak, right?
It is.
Steak and chicken, I feel like, are the goats.
Yeah, it's interesting. Chicken has dominated the U.S. food market. It's grown 600, 700, 800% over the last 30, 40 years. Whereas beef consumption, this is interesting. A lot of people don't know that. Again, back in the 70s, the average American was eating about 92 pounds a year. We're now down to about 50 pounds a year. So we have a 30, 40% decrease in our beef consumption. And during that time, we've seen a dramatic increase in, autoimmune disease, cancer, certainly diabetes, obesity. And so it's like, why are we blaming beef when we're eating a lot less of it? And this is what we continue to see.
That is interesting. So our grandparents were eating double the amount of beef we were.
Just about, yeah, something like that.
And the chicken rate went up, you said?
Chicken went up phenomenally. Chicken went up from, I can't remember what the low number was, maybe 30, 40 pounds a year to where we eat like 150 pounds.
Damn.
Just chicken a year.
I wonder if that's a price thing or maybe there's way more of them.
It's a price thing. It's easier. When you talk about and this is the thing people talk about factory farming, chicken, broiler chickens or meat chickens. They're born 5 weeks slaughtered. They live in a less confined area. And so we produce a hell of a lot of chicken in this country. And I personally don't know that that's been a good trend, quite honestly. In fact, we eat, when it comes to the rest of the world, we eat a little bit more meat than most of the world. But when it comes to this beef compared to like, Europe, Eastern Europe, parts of Asia, we eat actually less beef and red meat, but we eat more chicken.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
When I go to Costco and I see their rotisseries, they're so plump these days.
Yeah.
It's like, what are they injecting those with?
Well, they probably, I'm sure they put a little like saline solution to plump them up. I mean, essentially, as you might know, that's a loss leader for Costco.
I know,
So,
yeah.
they just undercharge, get people in the door, buy memberships. But
I mean, people wait in line for those chickens. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a big seller for them. And they're $1.50 hot dog.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
All beef.
Is it? Yeah, I've never had one. So,
What?
Yeah, no, I've never had it.
Wow, that's like a staple in America. The Costco hot dog. That's funny, man. Well, what are you working on next? Any books coming up? Any?
Yeah, I am writing another book. So I wrote the Carnivore Diet. It came out in 2019. It's sold really well. A lot of people have used it kind of as the authoritative guide on carnivore. But I'm writing another book on just health in general. And it's provisionally titled Generational Health. We talk about generational wealth, talk about how to set up, a health sort of system for your whole family so you can pass it on to your generations. And I think that's, honestly, you talk about what's the best thing you can give to your kids, it's give them a healthy life.
Yeah.
So that's what the focus this next book's going to be on. Obviously, I also just put a plug for our company, Rivero. I mean, we are literally, here's one of the things. I'll go back to when I was practicing orthopedics. So this is, back 2012, 2013. I'm on this low carb ketogenic diet. We have a lot of obese patients, right? And they need knee replacements. And that's a big operation. And obese patients just unfortunately have higher complication rates. They're more likely to get infections. They're more likely to have blood clots. They're more likely just not to heal as well. And so the community came together and said, hey, we need to get these people to lose weight before we operate on them. And they didn't tell you how to do it. It was just figure out how to get these people to lose weight. So I was putting people on ketogenic diets at the time. And, not everybody would do it, of course. Some would do it, some wouldn't. But the people that would do it, very often they come back to me a couple of weeks later and said, you know what, doc, my knee doesn't hurt anymore. I know we're on a schedule for 2 months from now, but I don't have any pain. And I was like, well, if you don't have any pain, there's no reason for me to do the surgery as long as you can stay on the diet. That was really interesting to me because at that point I had done thousands of operations. It's like another day at the office, just operation. And that's how, surgery should be. It should be boring. It should be no excitement, routine, same thing over and over again. But that was really exciting to me. And I remember talking to the hospital administration. I said, hey guys, I would like to spend maybe a half a day a week just kind of talking about diet and lifestyle and nutrition with my patients. And they basically told me, no, we don't want you to do that. And I was like, what the F? I was like, what the hell is going on with this? So that clued me into what the real focus was on healthcare. Right. It's not necessarily doing what's best for the patient. It's like we need to make money, and if patients get a little better, that's a nice side effect. But the primary focus isn't there. And so, as a physician, as a quote unquote healer, there are a lot of things that go into healing people. It's not just what pill you can prescribe and what procedure you can do on them. It's, are they sleeping well? Are they managing their stress? Are they eating well? Are they exercising? Are they sedentary? And we don't get any sort of real training on that. I mean, it's all like lip service. We're not experts in that, and we really need to be. Yeah. And there's no support for that. I remember all I could do, and I was seeing 50 patients a day. As an orthopedic surgeon, you're ridiculously busy. It's like every 5-6 minutes you got a new patient. And so it's like, if you want to have a lengthy discussion about lifestyle, it ain't happening. So I would hand out flyers. Hey, go watch this video, go read this book. And so it was, that was not only not incentivized to do the right thing with diet and lifestyle, but it was actively disincentivized. And that got me really frustrated. And so now the company we have now, it's all about lifestyle, and it's all about those things we just talked about. And the difference is just remarkable. I mean, the patients are literally throwing their pills away. I mean, wow. They're like, I don't need this stuff anymore, which is cool. That's how medicine should be practiced. We're talking about this Make America Healthy again, and we'll see how it plays out. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people, there's a lot of interest in this, but there's a lot of financial interest in keeping the status quo. Yeah. There's a lot of money made in healthcare and in the crappy food that they put out there. So, you're going to see what gets tied up in the courts. What are the resistance? What are the compromises that are going to be made? And I think ultimately Make America Healthy again is going to come down to Americans wanting to be healthy. And it's just like, and you probably heard your other guests say this, stop patronizing these companies that are poisoning you, from the food side. And then you won't need the medications. And you know, you can actually, I think we collectively can change how things go.
Agreed. Yeah, I think just as an individual, don't rely on the government to change your health, right?
Absolutely. Oh, of course not. Yeah. And don't rely on your doctor either. And this is the other thing that's interesting. Let's say, you know, you go to the doctor tomorrow and you come up with some chronic autoimmune disease, right? Say they say you've got lupus, right? And you're like, what the hell is lupus? I'm going to read about it. And the doctor, you're going to go to the doctor, say, hey, doc, why do I have lupus? And he's going to say, he's going to say, I don't know, maybe genetics, bad luck. We don't really know. And then you're going to say, what can I do about it? I'll say, well, you're going to take these medicines for the rest of your life and all we're going to do is manage it. So it's depressing, but it's really disempowering, you know, because now you're dependent upon this other dude to give you medicines every, 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it might be. And you're told there's nothing else you can do on your own. Diet doesn't make a difference. You know, there's none of this stuff. Just take the medicines and just kind of follow along. And that's really unfortunate because really what we're finding is when you empower patients, you say, hey, look, there's something you can actually do. This is something within your control. If you just fix the right things, you have a good shot of not only improving your situation, but literally curing your disease. And we don't talk about cures anymore. You know, when you ask doctors why, the answers are almost always, we don't know, or genetic, or some kind of BS answer.
They're not trained to talk about cures.
You know, and it's a shame. It should be. We should be. I mean, you hear about, like, you know, you think about all the drugs that have come out on the market in the last years, you know, the GLP-1 drugs, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the Ozempics and whatnot. What does that drug do? Does it cure obesity? No, it chronically manages it for, you know, shot for the rest of your life. I mean, these drugs are designed for you to take for the rest of your life. Why is that? Because it's recurring profit, right? I mean, Goldman Sachs did a study a few years back, and they asked, does it make sense, financial sense, to cure disease? And they came back with a resounding no, it does not.
Wow.
So there's no pharmaceutical company that really wants to cure disease. All this stuff about curing cancer, it's all kind of a smokescreen for just, you know, more treatment. Wow. Yeah, it's scary. It is. It's a little frustrating. You know, it's a little disappointing that I spent, you know, almost 15 years of my life, medical school, college, surgical training to enter this profession. And then you get there, and then after a few years, you realize that it ain't about what you thought it was about.
Yeah, your whole life was a lie.
Yeah, in many ways.
That must have been a wild revelation for you.
It was depressing for a long time. But fortunately, like I said, turning it around, and I think I think a lot of people are discovering that now.
Yeah, there's some scary side effects with Ozempic. I know someone paralyzed from it right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Like gastroparesis or literal like walking
stomach,
problem. A stomach problem. Yeah, that's pretty common. Yeah. You think about, and this is an interesting thing, because we'll go back to the carnivore diet here. Beef, so how GLP-1 is what's called an incretin hormone, right? So it's secreted in somewhere called the ileum, which is part of your small intestine. So you've got your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your duodenum, your jejunum, and then your ileum. And there's this concept called the ileal brake. And so what happens is when nutrition winds its way through your intestines, it gets to the end, there's still a lot of nutrition that hasn't been absorbed yet. It stimulates these L cells, which secrete GLP-1. And GLP-1 tells the stomach to slow down. It says, slow down. We got too much food coming in. We can't absorb it. Beef does that really nicely. So when the beef gets there, it says, oh, I'm full, I'm stuffed. I don't want to slow everything down. The GLP-1s do it like times 1,000. Damn. It's like it sits around in your system, and naturally it's in your system for just a couple of minutes. This thing will sit in your system for weeks and weeks and weeks. So that stomach gets that signal to stop moving. This is why you get the side effects of paralysis. So if you go to the hospital and you need elective surgery and you've been on one of these drugs, they're going to make you wait 3 or 4 weeks for the effect to wear off.
Holy crap.
So that's
that could be a life or death time period.
I mean, it could be.
Depending on the surgery, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an emergency, they'll do it. But I mean, like I said, the reason they want to do that, because if you have a belly full of food when you go to sleep under anesthesia, there's a good chance that'll go up into your lungs. You'll get aspiration pneumonia and potentially die from it.
Wow. So food's in your stomach that long when you're on Ozempic?
It could be in there for days. Yeah. Normally food is in your stomach like 2, 3, 4 hours typically. That's a typical gastric emptying time. And you put on these drugs, you might have food sitting in there for 3 or 4 days.
Wow. Anything concerning with TRT? There's a lot of guys your age on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take TRT. I mean, I know a lot of people accuse me of that stuff. I'm a big, strong guy.
Natty or not.
I've never done it. I never had an interest. I don't feel like I need to. But I think that and again, TRT is about a $4 or $5 billion industry right now. I think it's overprescribed. I know there are a lot of people that will swear that they've seen benefit, but I mean, I think the majority of the people that would often, go into the doctor say, I feel like garbage, my testosterone's a little low, get put on this medication, and some of them will get a benefit from that. But the majority of them, if they just took a real solid, period of time and really, did the appropriate lifestyle things, not drinking all the beer and crap and then alcohol, and getting good sleep, and not, looking at their phone until 2:00 in the morning, and actually exercising and eating, in a reasonably good fashion, not necessarily carnivore for everybody, but for some, a lot of people would not need to go on it. And I get a lot of guys that are on TRT that they go carnivore and they're able to come off it because they don't like injecting drugs.
Yeah.
I think makes sense.
Have you ever come across a patient you couldn't fix their health issues?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's people that, depending on what it is, there are people that are so irrevocably broken that a diet is not going to be enough. Now, it's not that we can't sometimes improve them, but to say we're going to cure every patient of every disease would be obviously not at all reality. I mean, there are patients that will do a carnivore diet and it makes them worse.
Wow.
I mean, that occasionally happens.
I wonder why that happens.
It's hard to say. I mean, this is one thing, like I said, we're collecting data with our company. We're using AI to help us to analyze the differences between different patients so we can see, hey, this person is really going to respond really well to this particular type of diet. And this person is going to respond a little better with a little bit of this. And, like I said, I try not to be dogmatic about it. I mean, I've been sort of, I don't say pigeonholed, but I've been sort of cast as a carnivore guy. But I mean, I believe that it's a good diet for a lot of people. But I'm not the guy here telling you that all humans need to be doing this, and it's the only thing we are, and humans are carnivore. And, in my book, I wrote we're omnivores. I mean, clearly are. Well, if cavemen would have come across Twinkies 50,000 years ago, they damn sure would have eaten them. That tastes good, right? So you eat that stuff. So, I mean, it's, like sometimes it's like diet is part of the puzzle. I think it's a crucial piece. I mean, I don't think you're going to cure disease unless you address the nutrition. You might have to address several other things as well, but for sure. Yeah.
Have you seen the human jawline is getting weaker?
Yeah, that's thought to be this goes back to some of the work of Weston A. Price. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
He was a dentist in the 1920s or so, and he went around the world looking at dental health, and he would look at like these primitive or indigenous tribes, and they had strong, healthy jaws, they had good solid teeth, and he compared it to the modern people, and they saw tooth decay, underdeveloped jaws. I mean, people wisdom teeth that are impacted because the mandible doesn't grow enough. And so what happens is when we start off, we go on a really soft food nowadays, rice cereal and stuff like that, instead of what there's a really interesting paper. It's about the comparative anatomy or it's comparative mammalian weaning time. So all mammals breastfeed, right? That's why they're mammals, right? And what they do is they look at the brain size and they compare it to when they stopped weaning. And so what they can do is they can predict what the diet is based on their brain size.
Wow.
And so when they look at, like, for instance, other primates, like for instance, an orangutan breastfeeds the longest. They breastfeed for about 8 years. Right?
Holy crap.
A human, like a wild human, will breastfeed about 2 years. Now, our brain size is 1,200 to 1,500 cc's. An orangutan is about a 300 cc brain. And the difference is the post-weaning diet that they go on. Orangutan is going to be eating twigs and leaves, not much energy, not much fat, small brain. So they're primarily breast milk. Now humans, because they breastfeed for such a short period of time, and they have this enormous, brain, relatively, the only way it's postulated they could do it is because they had plenty of animal fat. And, now these days, because we can turn carbohydrates into really highly dense energy, we're talking sugars and powders and things like that. We change the absorption characteristics. We can sort of, circumvent that requirement. But back in the day, it's pretty obvious that early human beings, in order to grow their brain, needed access to high quality animal fat in copious amounts.
Do you think our bodies are evolving because of all the new sugar and processed foods? Like our kids are going to be able to process that better than us? Well,
I mean, over a period of many thousands of years, yeah. I mean, there are like regional differences depending on like where your ancestors come from. Like people that, lactose intolerance is a perfect example, right? 2/3 of the planet is lactose intolerant. Northern Europeans tend to have that. They were probably exposed to earlier domestication of the cow versus some of these other regions. Things like certain plant-based foods in particular, you know, like grains in the Middle East. You know, this is the sort of the agricultural belt. You know, first at Mesopotamia between the Tigris and the Euphrates is where the Fertile Crescent was where they thought agriculture originally originated. So some of those people tend to have a greater ability to tolerate these things. You know, I would posit that all of us, you know, healthy, I mean, sick people lose these abilities. All of us have this residual ability to do well with meat, you know, and it can change over years as you get sicker and sicker. And then you could say even farther back, you can make the argument, well, we were monkeys in the trees eating fruit. So there may be some context that was also a reasonable source of energy. Now, again, modern times we have fruit. You can, you know, we're in Vegas. I mean, I don't know what grows here.
Not much fruit here.
I mean, it's the desert, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, like you in northern Canada, you can get strawberries in January now. That's not realistic for most of humanity.
Yeah, you start looking at cultures and ones that rely on like a vegan diet, and you look at their average height and their weight, and there must be a relation, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. There is a clear relationship between population height and nutritional adequacy. So if you look at like a lot of the shortest populations, and there's a great example in Africa. There was I can't remember I think it's the Hottentots. They're very, very small, and I believe they have a plant-based diet. And there's another tribe, and I can't remember the name, and they were very much meat-based. We could look at like the Maasai, for instance. They're very tall. And so it just shows the difference between what you have access to. Like India is one of the most plant-based countries on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, they've got about 28% of the population is strict vegetarian, but the remaining 70%, they eat a tiny amount of meat. They eat about 10, 15 pounds a year total, which is a small amount. They have tremendous problems with stunting. I mean, they you know, on the world athletic stage for a country with now the most populous country in the world, 1.4 billion, their Olympic medal totals are ridiculously low.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to China, similar size, and back in the 80s, their economies are very similar. And China dominated, you know, the Olympic medal counts compared to India. So it has to do with food definitely impacts the populations.
Chinese people are short though, right?
Well, it's changing. I mean, it's you know, I guess it depends on regions and stuff like that. But as they get greater and greater access to more and more high quality nutrition, meat in particular, you're going to see their height going up quite a bit. Yeah, there's a prehistoric population called the Gravettians. So right now, the tallest populations in the world are like the Dutch. I think some like in Croatia or some of the Central European places, they have these really tall populations. The average height is around 6'1". You know, average American height is about 5'9" to 5'10", right?
Yeah.
For male. So that's pretty tall. You know, if you've ever been to like Holland or, you know, Northern Europe, there's a lot of real tall people walking around. Like you and I are both tall guys, and I walk around there, I feel like a normal dude. Here I feel like a tall guy. But back around 30, 40,000 years ago, there was this population called the Gravettians, and they were basically specialized mammoth hunters. They were all over like Central Europe, Croatia, and places like that, and Romania. And they were thought to be averaging close to like 6'3" back 30,000 years ago, when the average human size was something like 4'10" or something like that. So these were giants. These were like ginormous people because all they ate was meat, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is they're good to know when I have kids, though. You know, I'm going to get them on some meat early.
I mean, if you have kids, you know, milk is tremendously good for growing. You know, there's strong correlations between milk consumption and you know, height. Same thing with meat consumption.
Really? Because I thought that was a myth. The milk one is good for your bones.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, it shows up. It shows up pretty well.
Okay.
In these countries. Yeah.
Wow, I never know what to believe on social media, man. That's the tricky part.
Yeah, you can look at the source literature. It shows. I think it's. I mean, it's not like huge. It's like a centimeter and a half difference. But I mean, on a population level, that's significant.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that may be the difference between like your son being. Well, you're tall guy, so if you have a son, you know, he's probably going to be at least 6'3", maybe, your height, something like that. So.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about the stomach acid, because out there you were saying we have the most acidic stomachs out of any animal, right? Yeah,
well, we have among the top. Our stomach acid, our gastric pH resting with no food in it is about 1.5. So the pH scale goes from 0 to 14, or 1 to 14 rather. And 1 is the most acidic you can have. That's like battery acid, right? So ours is about 1.5. A lion is like 2.5. A cow is like 5, you know. And so why do we have such acidic stomach acid? Well, it's thought that early humans were scavenging animals. And so as a scavenger, you would come across a carcass that has already been kind of gnawed on by like a lion, and you get some meat that's been sitting out for a while. So it's going to be covered in a lot of bacteria. So if you eat it, if you don't have strong stomach acid, you're going to get sick and you may not survive. And so this was the evolutionary pressure that drove this. And there's, again, there's another great paper talking about evolutionary justification for stomach acid. I mean, I can't remember the exact title, but something, you can find it's something along those lines. And they compare like every single, there's a study that compares the gastric acid of every species or every major species on planet Earth. And humans are among like vultures, not coyotes, I think, some of these scavenger animals are the ones that have similar to us.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Now when you hear about the alkaline water then to offset the pH, is that just BS or what is that about?
I think it's largely a waste of money, man.
Really? Because they charge a lot for those water bottles, man.
I think there's a lot, again, I will tell you, I think there's a lot of stuff out there where people are just, there's this theory and there may be some mechanistic data, but what is the clinical outcome? I mean, I've yet to meet somebody that's like put their disease in remission by drinking alkaline water. I just haven't seen that happen. So maybe I'm wrong. I tend to be very skeptical about most things. I mean, I know there's like some of this stuff like, and I'll probably piss off some people, like methylene blue. That's the latest.
That's a hot one.
Yeah, but I just, my prediction, and I may be totally wrong on this, but 3-4 years, nobody's going to be talking about it anymore. It's going to be a fad. It's come and gone. It might have helped a few people in some situations, but I'm like I said, I'm really, really skeptical of most things.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of fads come and go in your day.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, with the supplement stuff, I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s and 80s and, bodybuilding stuff, when I lift weights, I had all these magic supplements that the guys taking all the steroids would pose for. And you think, oh, I got to try that. They never made any difference. It was just, like I said, eat a good diet, get good sleep, train, manage your stress.
How long have you been on zero supplements?
Well, 10, 15 years, something like that. Somewhere
That's
that
impressive, man. Yeah, I'm on creatine right now. I don't know how I feel about that one yet.
Well, creatine, like I said, I think most supplements are garbage. Creatine has some good research behind it. It's been tested many, many times. For many, many years, it was just an ergogenic athletic supplement, right? It would help you to be a little stronger. It might have a little bit more for like high intense sprinting. If you think about our energy system, so when we're doing a different type of work, like if we're doing like a sprint or a quick lift, it's all the phosphocreatine system. So creatine actually benefits that. So a couple, stronger lifts, short sprints. That's why a lot of people on a meat-based diet will see an improvement with that because you're eating a lot of creatine. And I remember when it came out, like I think it was the late 80s, early 90s that it started to come out. I remember taking it for back in those days. And I remember I was bench pressing 225. I was hitting like maybe 18 reps, not bad. But I with creatine, I was able to hit 24 reps. I remember that was, this is back in the day when I used to bench press.
That's still a big jump though, 6 additional reps.
It was a big increase. So I know it did work. Now, as you probably hear, a lot of the people are taking creatine for both brain health and cardiac health. And so, I think, there was a study that came out recently talking about Alzheimer's patients or dementia patients, and adding creatine seemed to help with some of their cognitive issues, some of their memory deficits. And they're going really big doses, like 20 grams at a time, which is a huge dose. And normally like the creatine loading dose was like 5 grams and you take, 1-2 grams a day or something like that. And I think what you're seeing with that in that population is most of these older folks, if you look at what they eat, they stop eating meat. They start eating like garbage. They start eating, they eat soft food because their teeth have all rotted out. Right. They're eating a high sugar diet. Their probably overall body creatine stores are minimized. And so loading them with creatine actually helps. And so this is why there are a number of substances that I think have some decent research behind them: creatine, carnitine, carnosine, but they all come from meat. So I'm like, I'll just eat the meat and go from there.
Yeah. It's been fun, man. Where can people find your company and keep up with you?
Rivero.com. If you have an autoimmune disease, you have a metabolic disease, obesity, diabetes, go to Rivero.com. We're in all 50 states. I am on social media, Instagram, Shawn Baker 1967. I'm on X at SBakerMD, and then Shawn Baker MD on YouTube and whatever else.
If you want to see him dunk, guys, give him a follow.
There you go. Thanks.
Let's go. See you guys. Peace.
Appreciate it.